They're just characters, they're playing a role. And you'll notice that when you talk to them, it's kind of a little subdued, it's a little blank. You don't see you don't see any free will action. What you're seeing is smiles and it's okay, come on, and hugs, and everything's fine. It's all at that kind of very simple, straightforward level. And then of course it's, well, we have to go now, just go over there and it'll be fine, and we're busy. We'll have to go, so then there's a party and it doesn't take very long, and it's not what you think it is. And we can talk more about that later, but again, you either interpret what suits you in metaphors of your own, or sometimes the system gives you metaphors that they know that you can understand and relate to. That's why you have to be skeptical. You see, you can't take everything you see at its, as being objective. It's not. It's all subjective. It's all very subjective. You have to be skeptical. Just because you see your mother or you see Aunt Susie doesn't necessarily mean that's Aunt Susie, but it may be everything that Aunt Susie ever was, and it may tell you secrets about Aunt Susie that only Aunt Susie would know, and you may find out later that those things are true. That's just data in a database. Okay. Aunt Susie's gone, doing other things. Aunt Susie's busy. She's got another life. She's working on other problems, and she's not really Aunt Susie anymore. Now she's somebody's Uncle Fred. See, she's some burly guy now that works on the waterfront, right? Not that little petite lady that she was. She's different now. So Aunt Susie has to move on, be other things, learn other lessons. Can't just hang around being Aunt Susie forever, waiting for you so she can greet you. I'd like to go on, but I have to wait here and greet, my relatives. All right, metaphors. So you get the idea why skepticism is so critical, why you have to learn to live with uncertainty, and why just zipping around and experiencing whatever in the larger consciousness system is not very productive compared to a systematic probing and collecting of data in order to assess what is fundamental outside of you from what is not. Okay, here's another set of metaphors, something that a lot of people use. Chakras. You all know what chakras is what chakras are? In the Hindu system, the chakras, there are 7 of them. They start with the root chakra and they go on up. It's like belly button and solar plexus, and there's throat and there's head and there's one above the head. There's 7 of these, and they're energy centers, and there's lots and lots of things that each one does and controls, and you open and whatever. Their chakras are not real things. They're not fundamental. They're metaphors. Now, we have metaphors like this because we can't speak to each other. We can't communicate except in metaphors. That's what language is. A word is a metaphor. It stands for something. The word is not the thing itself. It's just a symbol, a metaphor for something else. We speak in terms of metaphors. So if someone goes out and gets information and they interpret it into a system of metaphors and builds up systems of tools to deal with it, it's not that makes it wrong. It's just not fundamental. Metaphors are good. It's a way of sorting the data, right? You can take a bunch of data, and if you sort it in certain ways, you can see a picture and it means more to you than if the data's just kind of all out there. Well, the chakras are a way of sorting the data, and it's a way of creating tools so that you can interact with the non-physical and with your growth in a very particular way. It's just a way of seeing the world, if you like. It's a perspective. It's not fundamental. Otherwise, why would the Hindus see chakras and the Zen Buddhists don't? The Zen Buddhists wrong? They're just not as smart or as gifted as the Hindus? Or are the Hindus wrong? They see things that aren't there? No. The chakras are metaphors. And they're good metaphors. And they're very helpful metaphors, and people can use them. Just like the light we healed with yesterday is a metaphor. But you can use it to heal. So metaphors are tools. They're part of our language. But there is nothing fundamental about chakras. If there was something fundamental about them, then everyone of all the different cultures and types, all the shaman and all the different places and all the various, mystics would all be telling you about chakras. So many people will see them though. That's because that becomes one of their metaphors. If it makes sense to you, you can use it. Light is only a metaphor. Energy is only a metaphor. I'm going to send you energy, healing energy. I get your vibes energy. You know, we're trading all this energy. Everything's just energy. Energy is just a metaphor. There's no such thing as energy. Energy is our metaphor for something that can create an effect, right? It takes energy to lift that glass. I just created an effect. It takes energy to make something hot or to make something cold. If you got to change something, it requires energy. That's what energy is. So if we're going to heal somebody and we change that black spot to a white spot, what we've done is sent them energy. See, it's just a metaphor. There is no such thing as energy. It's just the way we use to describe words and concepts we use to describe. Auras. We see auras around people. I first started seeing auras, I guess if you've read my book, you know, in the first part of it, I talk about the first time I started seeing auras. And I learned some things about auras after experimenting and doing some research with them. Most of my information comes with actually doing experiments in the larger reality system and seeing how it works. So one of the things I learned immediately about seeing an aura, that you could see an aura around a person, or you could see an aura around a picture of the person, or you could just see an aura because you wanted to see it. Just thinking about the person. So it didn't have anything to do with that person's body. It wasn't attached to them. It was just information. Oh, that was kind of a new idea. Then I found out that not only was it information, but I could control the output format. It was just information I was getting. Remember, we had an output format of a gingerbread cookie kind of thing with black spots on a white background of health. Okay, that's just us telling the larger consciousness system, us telling the database how we want the data. Okay, so I read C.W. Ledbetter's books. It was called Man Visible and Invisible, and he had these books with real pretty colors of all the auras that he had seen and what they meant. And here's a guy that's angry, and he'd show a picture of him and so on. I'd looked at all of those, and basically I saw very similar kinds of things. Why? Because after reading those books, I took on those metaphors, right? That was the way I interpreted it also, okay? And because a lot of people have read those books and similar books, those metaphors have kind of gotten accepted, sort of like the existence of the electron, right? We all believe little electrons are, you know, these little BBs with charge. So it's generally accepted. But you can change that. You can say, okay, I want the emotional body. I want to see the emotional body of you, and I want to see it such that I want green jagged lines to be anger. That's my output format. Sure enough, you can get it that way. You can get it any way you want. But we have, you know, if you followed Carl Jung, you know that he talked about archetypes. Our culture has archetypes. We see, that's the white hat, black hat, right? The white's the good, the black's the bad. The white's true and beautiful and clean, and the black is evil and whatever. That's an archetype. And they find that in all, you know, it's spread across cultures. And some of our archetypes are spread across humanity. And Jung did a lot of categorizing of these archetypes. Well, how is it that when you see a cartoon figure, and you see a cartoon figure with a bunch of little stars going around a circle above his head, what does that mean? See, everybody knows what that means. It's obvious, right? We know what that means. Well, why? Did somebody teach you what that meant? Did somebody say, you see those little stars around the head? That's a symbol for being dizzy, for being, you know, like somebody's knocked you over the head, right? That's this being bumped over the head. Did somebody ever teach you that? No. Nobody ever taught you that. But the first time you saw it, you knew exactly what it was and what it meant. It's an archetype. Cartoonists use those. It's a symbol that we all immediately recognize. So when we're looking at somebody's aura and we see exclamation marks and question marks and you know, stars around their head, well, we know what that means, right? We interpret it. That's our metaphor. So it's the same sort of thing. What is an aura? It's data out of the database. It's not something that comes around your body. Yes, you can measure electromagnetic fields around body because bodies, you know, it works on electricity, right? All those nerves are little electrical impulses running up and down those nerves. So of course there's fields and things around the body, but an aura is not attached to your body. An aura is just data. You want to see an aura of your cousin who lives in Hong Kong? Just have your intent. I'd like to see the what do you call it? The astral body, which is the emotional body. And sure enough, there you can get it. You don't need to be looking at his body. And you can make the output anything you want. You can see auras that give you data about somebody's spiritual growth. And you'll see various colors and various designs of the light up around the head, whatever, which you can interpret as to what they mean. Okay, you can see health auras like we did the other day. All of these are just getting data out of the databases. That's all it is. And then your output data, your output format is this kind of this color egg, right? It's this thing that kind of goes from head to toe. It's a little bigger than the body, and it's got all these colors in it. And because that's a good output format, because a picture's worth 1,000 words. You know, if somebody had to explain it to you in words, it would be very clumsy. To try to graph that would be very clumsy. But you could get it that way. If you really wanted to, and you broke it into 20 different personality types and said, I want to see this person, how much they have of these various personality types, and okay, here's the y-axis is going to be how much they have this type, and the x-axis is going to be all these types. That's the way I want the data. You'd get the data that way. You could get it graphically, or you could get it in an R in a picture. So all we're doing when we get R's is we're accessing those databases with our intent. We just don't know that that's what we're doing. Another word for those databases from the Hindu theology is Akashic records. Right? Akashic records is what they call the databases. It's just, this system is an information system. We're talking about a digital information system here. That's consciousness. All right, I think we talked about this. This is kind of fun too. I haven't mentioned this here, but you know, when you go into the larger reality and you meet somebody and you talk and you have a being, you form a being up in your mind, and you can tell somebody what the being looked like. Well, what do they look like? They look like us, don't they? They have heads and shoulders, and they have arms, they kind of have legs. Well, why is that? You know, they're not walking around. You know, there's nothing to manipulate with those arms. There's this data. Well, that's us, right? We're seeing us. We're giving a metaphor of a human form to that. And we may see their face and describe it in great detail. They're kind, they're old, you know, whatever they are. You just have a sense of all that character that's in there. And if you're not into that much detail, they're wearing a hood or something, and it's just dark in the face. You don't see that much. But how do we clothe them? Right? Well, if it's Uncle Fred, then there he is. He's got the suspenders, he's got the plaid shirt, the corncob pipe, right? That's Uncle Fred, because that's your image of Uncle Fred. He's been dead for 10 years and he's still wearing that same plaid shirt. They evidently don't have laundromats in the larger reality. He never changes shirts. That's our image that we give. We run into these beings. You ever seen any of them naked? No. You never run into a being, and there they are, stark naked in front of you. No, of course not. Because in our culture, that's not acceptable. So we clothe them. We dress them up. And if we don't know how to dress them up, because we don't really know where they come from or what period they represent, it's not like Uncle Fred that we know has a plaid shirt on and suspenders, then we put him in a robe. Because a robe is always in fashion, anywhere. And it hides a lot of detail, so you don't have to worry about creating all that detail. Put the hood out over their face. So people in the larger reality system mostly wear robes. That's the fashion. And you go there, maybe you'll wear a robe too. Okay, in any reality frame, one must strive to become aware of one's abilities and must strive to become aware of one's limitations and discover the operational causality of their immediate environment. Just like the blind person that gets teleported to Times Square. See, you have to start to discover your world and do it in your own terms. And it may take you a while. You may look at 100 different people and look at their spiritual aura before you are able to interpret it. So you look at the spiritual aura of people you know to be very spiritual, okay? And you look and see what that aura looks like. And then you look at somebody who isn't very spiritual, somebody who's mean, full of fear, you know, whatever, maybe drug addicts or something, and you can see what that looks like. And you build up your own metaphors for it. You don't have to read Ledbetter's book and then do it his way. You can look at it your own way. And we're going to calibrate you as to just what a lot of these things mean and how you interpret them a little later. All right, I really overdid that one. All right, here's the more, we're not going to spend much time on some of these. We've already talked about them. Here's the blind man. We already talked about that. What he has to do is just explore one little step at a time. He's got to take a few steps, then go back. Take a few steps and go back until that gets so familiar that it's part of his map. Take a few steps in another direction, go back. You have to build your map with experience, slowly. Okay? And that's true whether it's communicating a non-physical being or whether it's places that you're going. It's just that kind of a process. Okay. We talked about guides already. They can be, they can be an angel, they can just be a being, they can be very detailed, they can have personality, often they'll have a sense of humor, whatever. Does everybody have a guide? Well, no, not necessarily. It depends. Everybody has a potential interface with the larger consciousness system, but if you're not open to the idea, then you don't really ever exercise that interface. Okay? So people who think guides are a ridiculous idea that only goofy people would ever consider that, then they're never going to interface with a guide because there's no communication there. It's not going to do them any good. It's not an interface that they can use. Okay? So it's not that they're all alone without a guide. It's just that they have an interface that they're not using. You know, I'm sure you have that on your computer. There may be some interfaces that you never use on your computer just because you don't know they're there. Don't know how to use them. It's the same sort of thing. Now, what about guides' availability? Yes, they're available whenever you need one, whenever you want. And if you learn to talk to them, if you learn to interact with them, you can get, all you're doing is exercising the interface. It's like you go from a line editor back in the, in the 1970s to a graphical interface, today. You exercise that interface and it gets better and better. And you can make it suit your own metaphors to where it suits you. Okay, let's see. This guide, they're there to help you evolve your consciousness, focused on your growth in the big picture, meeting your needs, serving your wants. You can talk to guides, but don't expect in the beginning for your guides to be real chatty. And if they are, don't expect the chat to mean a whole lot. That's because they're not real interested. The larger consciousness system, now I'm talking about they, right? Interface with the larger consciousness system. The larger consciousness system is not real keen on dealing with you intellectually. Why? Because it's a waste of time for the most part. Your intellect is mostly attached to your ego. And the things you want to talk about, and the things you want to know, and whatever, is mostly just ego. They're not important. So instead, it just gives you telepathic communications that are more useful to you. And if you're not really inclined to grow from it, they may not get you anything at all. They may not communicate with you. How do you get to communicate? How do you get your guides to talk to you? How do you start and open this interface? You open it with a will and a desire to grow up, a will and a desire to become more. I need help. I'd like some more experience. I want to get a bigger picture. I want to become love. I want to get rid of my fear and ego. Can you help me? That sort of thing. If you have a motivation that this is where you want to go, then the system will help you in however it can. And if you want to do that in the form of an interface, communication, you can. Language, some people talk a lot with their guides. They get a lot of information from their guides. But that's just a tool. A lot of people have to heal with somebody else. There are those people that say, I can't heal anybody, but I have these other beings that are very powerful, and they can heal. So I'm just a conduit. I don't really heal anything. I'm a nobody. I can't do that, but I have these beings, and I direct them to who I want to heal, and they actually do the healing. That's just a tool. That's a belief that they can't do it, but somebody else can. Now look how look how strange that belief is. I am nothing. I have no power. I can't heal, but I've got these very powerful beings who'll do whatever I say. See, they work for me, and if I say heal that person, they do it. No questions asked. I'm the boss. You see, so the boss who can direct these very powerful beings is just a little bit of nothing who can't do anything. But he's got some powerful friends that'll do whatever he says. That's not consistent. You can heal because you're consciousness and you have an intent. Using somebody else, sometimes, yes, you can have other entities do things. It's not that that never happens. It's just that that can also be a tool. Other entities can do things, and they can do things at your request. But if they're really other entities, they can also say no and not do things at your request. Otherwise, it's a tool that you're using to focus your own intent. The tool is the other beings. So there are no set rules. So you can't say that, well, if you're using other beings, it's always just you. It's not. There are no set rules. This is a very wide open reality system. Almost anything can happen in almost any way. There are it's almost, you never use the word never. Oh, it's never like that. Almost anything can happen in almost any way. It depends on the individual and the circumstances. See, we've talked about all of that. Often your guides, again, your interface to the larger consciousness system, can arrange specific dreams, non-physical experiences, physical experiences, synchronicity. All of these things can be basically given to you to help you grow. So often your dreams will be choreographed. You're dropped in a learning scenario, and you have to react to it. Now, they like to do that in dreams because in a dream, guess what? That intellectual ego is kind of detached. You're not using that. You act right out of the gut. You act from your being level in this dream. Even if your intellect says, oh, that wouldn't frighten me, when you see it in the dream, it frightens you if you actually have the fear inside at the being level. So they like to deal with you at the being level because, in other words, the larger consciousness system, deals with you at the being level because that's where the action is as far as your growth goes. Dealing with you at the intellectual level and at the ego level is not where the action is as far as your growth goes. So it's really not that interested. So a lot of people are saying, guide, talk to me. Tell me things. What's a good hot stock tip? What's this? Tell me about my past lives. Well, all of this is just an ego wanting to be entertained, wanting to know, wanting to have some gee whiz experiences that they can go check out and then tell their friends. See, not interested. Don't expect that. Negative entities, you can evolve, you can lower your entropy on a negative side of things, okay? Now, how do you do that? Control, power, force. Okay. If you want to be able to use your mind to make people sick as opposed to heal people, you can learn to do that. It's harder, it takes more time, but if you work at it for years, you can get good at controlling your mind, getting rid of the noise, finding a place of point consciousness, and then making people sick. And you can get good at that. But it's very limited. Why? Because making people sick is based in fear and in ego. And if it's based in fear and ego, it's self-limiting. It can't get but so much power before it self-destructs. It's limited. The positive side is not. Okay. So people can evolve, if you will. Maybe you'd say de-evolve in a negative path. And they can use practice and effort to be able to get good at it. Most of these people become big fish in a very small pond, because in a larger pond, they just aren't that powerful. They're just not that strong. But in a little pond, with a whole bunch of people that don't know anything and can't do anything, then suddenly they're the witch doctor. They're the voodoo master or something that can wreak havoc in your life. But if you have just a mediocre of power on the positive side, they're not much of a threat, because they're really not that big and strong, except in their little pond. It's a limited way to go, but it can be done. So there are negative entities. That brings us to fear. People fear that if they go in this out of body, they'll run into negative things that will get them, hurt them, make them go crazy, whatever, give them a disease. Fear is the enemy here. You are less likely to be hurt doing anything in the larger reality than you are driving your car or even just walking on the street. It's not that the risk is zero. It's that it's very, very small, particularly if you're a beginner. It's very, very small. The more power and ability you get, the more likely you are to meet up with things that would be a problem. But then the better you are at handling those problems, you see. As a beginner, it's very unlikely you're going to run into anything that will really hurt you. It'll just scare you to death, and you'll wake up in a cold sweat, but it's not really going to hurt you. Not impossible. I run into people lots that do have problems, but it's 1 in 10,000. It's not very many people have problems. So don't worry about that. Let the negative stuff go. Forget about it. Be fearless. You just go do it. It's very unlikely that it's going to cause a problem for you. All right. All right, we're pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps. Again, that's just what we said. It's like the blind man again in New York. You just have to do it with experience. You just have to pull yourself up a little bit at a time with your experience. Don't prejudge it. Just do it. Doesn't matter if you're talking to yourself. Just have the conversation. Keep having it until you have enough data that you can make a good judgment of where that data is coming from and whether it's inside or outside data. Tools are arbitrary. Intent drives everything. Clarity and precision is required. All right. All right. People who often say, I'm ready. I'm really ready for this. I really want to experience a larger conscious system, and nothing happens. Chances are they only think they're ready. They're ready for the experience. They're ready for the amusement park. They're ready for, some gee whiz and excitement, but they're not really ready to grow up so much. So if it's not happening to you and you want it to happen to you, how do you make it happen to you? Put yourself in a position and on a path where exploring the larger consciousness system will be part of your growth, part of your maturation and evolution toward higher quality consciousness. If that's the case, then the system will encourage it, and suddenly it will become easy and happen. If it's not, if that experience is more of a gee whiz and it's a fun thing to do and it's playing with the ego and you just want to see if you can do it and it really would be cool and you'd feel kind of special if you were able to do that sort of thing, then the system's not going to encourage it. Then you have to kind of force your way there if you're going to get there. So if you want it to happen and it doesn't, get ready. Make it so that it's on your path to consciousness evolution. You have to grow up at the being level. You can read all the books and study all the things, and that helps Your intellect will help give you direction and help motivate you. It's not that your intellect isn't useful, but it isn't going to actually help you learn much. You'll learn facts, but the learning, the growth that I'm talking about, the learning, raising the quality of your consciousness has to be at the being level, not at the intellectual level. All right. Okay, it's a variable. Quality, significance, and value of your experience is a variable that expresses the quality of you. So the kind of things you experience are an expression of who you are, as well as of what's out there, because we're sharing data here. You're a data set, you're running into other data sets. So, like I have here as an example, you can go to a great library and read comic books. You can get into the larger consciousness system and just play around, fiddle with it. Right? But it's possible, but it's not helpful to you, and it's very limiting. Don't misuse it. I always kid the guys and tell them that the reason they want to learn how to remote view is so they can see into the girls' locker room. But that's just a joke, but often people do want to. I'd like to get into that probable future database so I could, see what was happening and where I should invest and what I should do and what I should avoid and that sort of thing. It's the wrong motivation. See, that's the ego wanting information to serve the ego's needs. You can do it, but it's a waste of your time, and the system won't help you very much. All right. Okay, gaining access. Accessing the non-physical is a matter of focusing your awareness to a different incoming virtual reality data stream. It doesn't require a lot of ritual. It doesn't require a lot of fogginess. That was one of my first big discoveries when I was working at Monroe's. I started out like probably many of you do. I started with the meditation, and then you'd get yourself to a point where you would become unaware of this reality, right? But you'd be getting deeper and deeper, and your consciousness would be getting kind of foggier and foggier. And it was trying to achieve this fall asleep but stay awake state, where you get deeper and foggier, but you still have your control at the being level. And that was kind of what I was working to. And then after a year or so of that, I realized that none of that was necessary. All of that was a belief that I had that you needed to get deeper and deeper, which means farther and farther away from this reality frame. And it was a big, and I also did the classical out of body, where you'd roll out of body and you'd see your body and you were in the room, because I had the same kind of belief system. That's before I learned and did some experiments and so on to find that all those things were optional, that they were really just beliefs. But in any case, I realized that I could be perfectly clear-minded and actually feel like I was wide awake. I wasn't in some deep, foggy state. I was perfectly clear, wide awake, but I still wasn't attached to physical reality. My mind was still in point consciousness, but it was perfectly clear and awake, and that was so much better. And suddenly everything got better and everything got easier. The out-of-body got easier, the healing got easier, everything got easier because I wasn't in this deep, foggy state. You don't have to get deep and foggy to access the larger reality system. We just believe that we have to leave this system, kind of physically leave it by going deep into the fog. And if we're in a shallow state, then that doesn't work. We need to get in this deep state. Well, in a way that's true, because as you define depth in terms of not being connected to this reality, but at the same time, that depth often brings along with it fog. You get to be just kind of barely aware too. And you don't have to be barely aware. You can let go of this reality frame and be perfectly clear, just as wide awake as we are now. See, that's a better state to be. All we're doing is switching data streams. There's no need to get There's no need to go to sleep. It's not go to sleep and stay awake at the same time. It's just let this reality go. And you can let this reality go just by shifting your intent, shifting your awareness. And you can do it very quickly. Okay, and we're gonna talk about some of these things and how we do that. First of all, you need to learn to parallel process. Parallel process means that you can be in multiple realities at one time. So you can learn to, you can be here having a conversation with somebody who's telling you about an ailment they have or about their sick child, and at the same time that you're listening and talking to them and having a conversation, you can be healing that child. You can work on diagnosing and be doing the healing. Or you can be having a conversation with someone and you can go up to a database and bring down information that's pertinent to the conversation. Or you can be up here lecturing and talking about your big toe, and you can just let the data kind of flow down through you and let it just roll on out. That's easier that way, then you don't have to work so hard. You see? So you can be in multiple realities at the same time. Part of the way you learn to do this is by getting rid of your habits, letting your habits and rituals go. A ritual's just a habit. Okay. And I would suggest part of the way that I learned it was when I first learned to meditate, I learned to meditate sitting up because I took a TM meditation course when I was in graduate school, and that's what you did. You sat in a chair and they gave you a mantra and you'd say the mantra, and that's how meditation was. So I always meditated sitting up. Well, I tried meditating lying down. Couldn't do it. Just didn't work. It's like it was impossible. As soon as I sat up, easy. As soon as I'd lie down, impossible. So I worked on it a little harder. I said, that's got to be me. You know, meditation isn't position oriented. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with the position of your body. It's not body centered. It's mind centered. So I worked at it until I could meditate lying down and sitting up. And I figured, well, if that's an advantage, I'm getting rid of beliefs and habits, let's get rid of some more habits. Let's learn to meditate standing up. That took a little longer, but then you learn to meditate standing up. Then let's learn to meditate while walking around. Now, you wouldn't want to walk around a place where there are a lot of deep holes because you're only partly focused here. So you kind of walk around and be careful of what, you know, what's going on. But it's like when you drive your car and you pull into your garage and it's like, oh, how did I get here? I really don't remember the last 15 minutes of this trip. It's sort of like that, but you're driving your car, right? You're aware, you stop, you go. It's not like you run through red lights and drive over, you know, dogs or something. You're aware, you're careful, you're doing a good job of driving, but at the same time, there's another part of you that's not paying attention to the driving, that's somewhere else. You're parallel processing. Well, you can walk and meditate at the same time. And then, if you can do that, well, let's meditate on a bus full of people. Let's meditate, you know, in a noisy room. Learn how to meditate standing on one foot. And you keep doing these things, and what it does is it gets rid of your habits of needing quiet, of needing dark, of needing, you know, a special kind of environment to meditate in. As you learn to do that, your ability to parallel process gets better and better and better, because it's not when you're sitting on that bus full of school children and they're all laughing and doing things and you're going to meditate and find its point of point consciousness. You're not necessarily erasing all of them to where you don't know where you are, or you don't know where you are walking through your park while you're meditating and walking. You do know where you are. You do know what you're doing. You're just not attached to it. Just like when you're driving, you really know how to drive your car. You really did find your house, but you just weren't attached to the driving process. So you let the other stuff go. It's not important. You're still engaged in your reality, and then you learn to meditate or to go to the larger consciousness system while you're having conversations. So now you're being able to operate here in this reality frame and operate in some other reality frame at the same time. These things will all come if you practice them. They will not come right away. Just meditating, standing up, if you used to do it lying down, won't come right away. It takes a lot of practice, but you can do this. And that's the way you develop an ability to parallel process. Keep getting rid of your habits. Every time you have a habit that needs a certain kind of support structure or environment, violate that habit. Go do it some other way. It will not be easy, but don't give up and say, oh, I just can't do this. Do it and work at it, and eventually you will be able to do it. And then you'll get to the point that you can just switch data streams in 1/10 of a second, whenever you want to, no matter what you're doing, and you begin to live in more than one reality at a time. Now you're parallel processing, and you can live in 1 or 2 or 3 realities simultaneously, working in all of them. It's just a matter of parallel processing. In fact, it's not really so much parallel processing as it is, I find, is it's sequential processing. You know how computers do things is that they have 10 jobs working in their queue, right? They work a little bit on this one, a little bit on this one, a little bit on that one. They jump around. That timeshare. They timeshare the processor. Well, this is sort of like that. You timeshare your processor, except you're jumping so quickly between things that it looks like all 3 realities you're working in are all running simultaneously and continuously, but you're really time-sharing them. You're time-sharing your intention and your awareness of being to multiple realities, and you're doing it so quickly that you're coming in this reality, in that reality, in this reality. You're going back and forth in hundreds of seconds that it seems like it's smooth, but it is a time-sharing process. So you're gaining your access, and one way to make your meditation more stable is to just practice it under all sorts of conditions. And don't take no for an answer. You can do it. It just takes time. It may take you some years to do that. But that would be a good way to gain access as you want it, rather than as all the conditions are right. Well, I can't do it now because I just heard some bad news and something and I'm upset, so it'll have to wait till later. You need to be able to get to that point conscious state when you're upset, when you're not upset, when things are going good and when they're not going good, when you're tired, when you're very tired, and when you're not tired. So it's like no excuses. You ought to be able to get there under any conditions pretty much at any time. That'll take some years to work on. But once you do that, then everything becomes easier and easier. You want to get a little information? Well, take 2 or 3 seconds and get it, and then use it. You can get it as you need it. That's a better way to do it. So get rid of your rituals. Now, if you like your rituals, I mean, many of us have rituals that we do, places that just feel good. You know, we go and we sit in a certain posture and we light the incense and we ring a bell or whatever we do. If that helps you focus and that helps you do what you do, you don't have to throw it away if you really like it. You know, you may enjoy the ritual. Many people have an attachment to their rituals. I'm not saying throw it all away and never do any of that stuff. I'm just saying if you want to progress beyond that point, you'll have to let the rituals go at least sometimes. You can still go back and do them when you want to just because you find them pleasant, but they will limit you. The ritual itself will limit what you can do, how often, when, what conditions, and you don't want to be limited to having to abide by ritual. So that's the best way to gain access. Again, it's a matter of not doing. You don't need to learn new techniques. You need to unlearn your habits, your ego, beliefs, fear, expectations. You need to not act differently. You need to be different. And all of this will change you. You'll become a different person. It's a slow process of growing up. When you get to that point consciousness state, you should learn to get there and stay there. It ought to be a stable state. It can't be, yeah, I had a point consciousness once. It lasted for about 30 seconds and then went away. That's not a stable state. You have to get to the point consciousness state and basically keep it as long as you want to. So you could stay in that state for a half hour, an hour, if you wanted, and just float there in the void. And then that state becomes stable. Then you can access that state very quickly and let it go quickly. That's how then you can parallel process. That's how you can meditate and be in a point consciousness state with part of you, and another part of you is having a conversation here. It's just like, again, it's like driving your car and not really being aware of the mechanics of driving. You parallel processing. All right. You are consciousness. You're already out of your body. You're not in your body. Okay? Your body is only an interpretation of the data you receive, a constraint that enforces the rule set, okay, to your interactions with the rule set. You don't need to get out of your body to explore the physical reality. You simply need to get into your consciousness. You must experience yourself as consciousness, not as a brain-operated body in a virtual reality game. You have to let that concept go. That concept will trap you and limit you. Okay, is what you see in the non-physical your imagination, right? We talked about this. You supply the data stream, that's imagination. Something else applies the data stream, that's outside of you. Okay. Let's go on, we've done all that. One of the first things you can do is forget everything you've ever read about the non-physical. You can probably forget everything you've heard about the non-physical, because that's somebody else's interpretation of the data they got. Don't try to live someone else's experience. Bob Monroe rolled out a body. If you try to roll out a body, you're trying to use his tool, and have his experience. You have to find your own tool and have your own experience. So there's lots of people that don't relate to that. Now for Bob, that was just a good metaphor for switching data streams, was that he'd roll out, because in his mind he associated the consciousness with the body, had to get out of the body. And actually that was his term. OOBE is a term that Bob created. That was his acronym, out-of-body experience. Before it was called astral projection, which came with a lot of its own baggage. Okay? So don't try to live somebody else's experience. Don't read the book and say, that's what I need to do, and I need to use these tools, and I need to see it this way. There are lots of tools out there, but the tools vary from person to person. Okay, some of you are probably in the Reiki system. That's a healing system. The Reiki system has lots of symbols that they use. Those symbols have certain meaning and certain things. These are just tools. Some people who heal have to touch, have to heal by laying on of hands, right? And if they can't touch, they can't do it. So the healer has to go to the body and lay on the hands. Otherwise they can't heal, or they need pictures. All those are just limitations. The only active ingredient is your conscious intent. All the rest of it is metaphor and tools. Okay. So you don't necessarily take your experiences as literal. When you have experiences in the larger reality, just like when you have experiences in dreams, look for the content, the meaning, the significance of what's going on. Don't get wrapped up around the details. That's just your metaphor. Venture forth, see what happens, experiment, gather evidence, be detached and skeptical, observe, study, experiment. Yeah, have your own experience. Stop judging or guessing until you've worked on an experiment for months. Take the long view. In 20 years, you should be good at this. See, that's a long view. Many of us can't take that view. If we're going to, in 20 years, we're going to be good at it, then forget it, right? Can't do it. If it's going to take me, 10 years to learn how to play a piano, forget it. Don't have that much time. Don't take that attitude. Take this as a lifetime goal. Growing up is what you're here to do. You can do it. You can be a lot better at it if you know the rules of the game and what it is you're doing. Otherwise, you're just wandering around on a playing field trying to figure out what the game is. That's not very effective. So it should be a lifetime game. Making contact. You're going to talk to non-physical entities. Start with simple, straightforward questions. It might even be helpful to act like a trial lawyer. Ask questions to which you can get very simple answers. Even yes and no answers will work. But if you find an entity and you want to carry on a conversation and your first opening gambit is, oh, what's happening, man? You know, you're not going to get anything back. How you doing, you know? How's things going? What's up, dude? You know, that's not gonna get much back. You have to ask very specific questions that have short, specific answers. And that way you'll get information back. And then hopefully you'll have evidential information, stuff that you can then check and see if it's outside of you. Simple, straightforward questions. The questions have to be something other than about your ego. They have to be about something other than your entertainment. Ask and then listen. You have to be a good listener. You have to be a disinterested observer. Again, don't judge or second guess the independence of the source. Just take notes, just keep communicating, and in months, after many hours of communication, you'll know whether it's you're making it up, it's inside data, or whether it's coming from outside of you. You'll know. Be patient, be persistent, be polite. These beings aren't here at your request to serve you. These are not your servants. You have to deal with them with respect. Be fearless. If something's going in a way that you don't feel comfortable, then change it. Say so. Be direct. Don't feel like you can't express yourself. You have to express yourself. And question why. Why did you say that? Why is it like that? How does that work? Basically, you can interrogate, but not in an intense, abusive way. You can interrogate just by asking a lot of simple questions. And then always ask, can we talk more later? Would you come back and talk with me again? How do I get in contact with you? And of course, they know that. All you have to do is use your intent to interact with that person, and it happens. You don't have to go to a special place or call a special name, but if that's easier for you and that's a good tool, then do that. Say, do you mind if I call you Fred? And they'll probably say no. You know, that's all right, okay. Then you call them Fred. So when you want to talk to them, you say, Fred, are you out there? And most of the time you'll get a, yeah, I'm here. Then go ahead with your conversation. You'll work out the details as you go. Healing. We've already done some of that. We're going to do a little more of it in just a little while. We say all the rituals and all these distance, name, picture are all irrelevant. Time is a variable. When you're healing, sometimes it's handy to find out what the problem is, go backwards in time to where the problem started and heal it there, as opposed to healing it now. Sometimes you'll find that's a better process, healing at the beginning. And then you can work your time up a little bit at a time and see, does it come back? Okay, you healed it back at the beginning. Does it come back? If it does, do it. Move up another couple of years. Does it come back? If it does, you can heal it there. You might find that your healing is more effective if you go to the source. You can move time. Time's a variable. You can also do prognosis. And prognosis is often good in a graphical format. This is one of the things that a graph is probably better than a picture. Here's health on the Y, on a vertical axis. I'll put that over here, right for you, left and right. Going out this way then is on the x-axis would be time. You can make the time weekly, daily, yearly, decade at a time, however big you want your time scale. You set your time scale. And then you have your intent to see the prognosis of this person's health. How is their health going to change as a function of time? This is a prognosis for how likely is it they're going to get better. You go into the probable future database just by making that intent making the intent of how you want the data shown, and there you'll see a graph, okay? Here's the beginning of time, here's time equals 0, here's in 1 year at a time, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I want to see how this person's health is going to come and go over 5 years. Here's 0 health, here's perfectly healthy, and you'll see a curve. And it'll come up here and do this, it'll go that, it'll come down here. And you can say, well, it looks like they're going to get a little worse, then they're going to get a little better, then they're getting a whole lot worse. And oops, disappeared there, just dropped off. Maybe that's fatal. So you can get the data that way, in graphs. Now see, most people never think of that. What? I can go into the larger conscious system and get a graph? That's crazy. But if you don't think of that, if you don't use all these different modes, then you're limiting yourself. Otherwise, it's hard. How are you going to get data to explain to you about the prognosis? You can kind of get this sense that, well, it's going to get better before it gets worse, but you don't. It's really hard to pin it down if you don't go to graphical analysis. So again, that's just another limitation. It's something you don't use. Now, I'm giving you some tools that you can use and ways to approach it. But don't just copy my tools. Make up your own tools. Use tools that suit you. Remember that one of the tools we used yesterday was you are now at the cellular level. You know that somebody has a genetic disease that's right at the cellular level, so you fix one cell and then you say, I want all the rest of the cells to be like that one. So that's just a tool. That way you don't have to change the bad chromosome in 60 billion cells one at a time. You can just do it once and still change all of them. We talked about diagnosing tools, black and white, white on black. They have their advantages to have different colors. Healing tools, colors. Sometimes you will heal with white. Sometimes it will just come to you that a kind of a rose color would do, or blue, or green. Use whatever color comes to you. Sometimes you can let your color, whatever it is, your thing that shoots the light, right? You can let it pick its own color. Say, all right, I'll just pick your own color. Pick the color, but instead of just saying pick your own, say pick the color that will provide the most healing in the short term, okay? And it'll get one color. Then you can say pick a color that'll give you the most healing in the long term. It may pick a different color. So let it pick whatever color it wants. Or if it comes to you, you can use colors. Again, it's just tools. We talked about maintaining a background intent. And you repeat it several times a day for several weeks, collect evidential data. If you use parallel processing, you can make the process more effective. If you have to sit down, spend a half an hour getting into a meditation state at a quiet place where nobody will bother you in order to do this, then you're very limited in the amount of time that you can put into it. If you can do this riding on a bus full of school children and get to that state and start working in 10 seconds, work for 2 or 3 minutes, and then going about your business, and then half an hour later, do it again. You see, now you can put a lot of effort into it because you're parallel processing as opposed to having to have this special place and time before you can do things.